A millionaire had just walked through the door and froze, paralyzed by what he saw. His 6-year-old daughter, her golden brown hair being hacked and massacred by her stepmother. Tears streamed down her cheeks like rain as she sobbed and pleaded, "Mommy, please, don't cut my hair." In that instant, he raced forward and roared a single sentence that left everyone stunned and speechless. And what happened next, nobody could have expected. The sharp crack of breaking glass echoed through the spacious mansion in the suburbs of Scarsdale, New York. 6-year-old Sophia Lawson froze in terror, staring at the shattered fragments scattered across the marble floor, the water splashing the corner of Rebecca's red dress. Rebecca was the woman her millionaire father had married less than a year ago. Sophia stammered, "I'm sorry." But before she could finish, her thin arm was yanked brutally backward. Rebecca, 35, slender, with sharp eyes, bold red lips, and meticulously styled curls, erupted in fury. Her shrill voice echoed through the grand hall. "Useless!" Rebecca shrieked, her tone so sharp it made Sophia wince. "You can't even clear a table without breaking a glass. You are nothing but a burden in this house. All you do is make a mess!" Sophia was dragged toward the front door, her small hands flailing uselessly. Her blue and white dress was wrinkled, her ash-blonde hair tangled. The little girl tried to speak, her voice weak and trembling. "I'm sorry, Mommy, I didn't mean to. I'll clean it up. I'll do better. Sorry." Rebecca curled her lip, gripping Sophia's wrist tighter. "Do you think an apology will dry this dress? You ruined my outfit, so you will be punished. Punished so you never forget. Do you understand me, you useless child?" She hauled Sophia outside, ignoring the girl's weak resistance. In her rage, Rebecca shoved Sophia onto the stone steps. One hand pressed on the little girl's shoulder. The other grabbed a pair of shears that were resting on a nearby flower pot. The cold metallic sound sent a chill through the air. Sophia panicked. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Her entire body trembled. She clutched her dress, unable to reach the worn-out brown teddy bear in her room, the last gift her real mother had given her before she passed away. That bear had always been her comfort, but now it was out of reach. Rebecca's voice lashed out like a whip. "It's time you learn a lesson you'll never forget. A rich man's daughter, dirty and neglected like this, you are nothing but an embarrassment." The shears grazed her hair, catching the light. A soft lock of ash-blonde hair fell onto the stone steps. Sophia collapsed, screaming, her voice breaking. "Mommy, please don't cut my hair. I'll be good. I promise, I promise." The sound of a child's wails carried down the street. A few neighbors walking their dogs stopped in their tracks. Some lingered at a distance, whispering. One woman shook her head in pity. A man muttered, "That poor kid." Sophia could see every stare. She could feel the heavy silence, but no one stepped forward. Rebecca only grew harsher. She pulled Sophia's hair taut, bringing the shears in for another cut. Strands fell to the ground, mixing with the tears. Sophia's small hands clung to the hem of her dress, her lips trembling as she repeated her desperate pleas. She felt as if the entire world had turned its back on her. Just then, the dry screech of brakes echoed from the driveway. A sleek, black Bugatti Chiron pulled to a sharp stop right at the entrance. The sharp click of the car door opening cut through the air. Rebecca flinched. Her hand holding the shears froze. A tall man in a brown suit stepped out. His dark hair, streaked with silver, framed eyes as cold as steel. In his left hand he carried a leather briefcase. In his right, a green stuffed dinosaur, the gift he had just bought on his business trip. The little girl was still sobbing. Rebecca hadn't even hidden the shears when the man's eyes locked onto the scene before him. He stood stunned for a few seconds, his face darkening. His breathing grew heavy. His grip tightened around the green dinosaur. The air seemed to freeze. The man walked into the yard, his shadow stretching long over the steps. His deep, hoarse voice erupted, cold and sharp. "Rebecca, what in God's name are you doing?" That man was Richard Lawson, 40, a millionaire, a successful tech entrepreneur, a widower who had lost his wife in a tragic accident when Sophia was just 2. Now he stood, frozen, in his own front yard. He was known as a cold millionaire, a man who buried himself in work to escape the pain of the past. He had returned today from a long business trip, still holding the green dinosaur he'd bought for his daughter. But the scene in front of him made that gift feel so small. He looked at his daughter, her hair hacked unevenly, her eyes red and wet with tears, her tiny hands gripping the hem of her dress. The light brown hair that had once been Sophia's small pride, a tender memory of her late mother, now lay in clumps at her feet. Richard was paralyzed. His eyes hardened, his breathing shortened. His voice, when it finally came, was a low, hoarse growl. "Rebecca, what is happening here?" Rebecca flinched. The face that moments before was tight with rage suddenly changed. In an instant, the anger vanished, replaced by a fragile posture and glistening eyes, as if she were about to cry. Her voice trembled. "Richard, it's not what you think. I was just trying to teach her. The girl is so stubborn she doesn't listen. I never wanted to hurt her. I just wanted her to learn." Richard dropped his briefcase heavily to the ground, still holding the dinosaur. He walked directly to Sophia, knelt, and swept her into his arms. Her small body was trembling, and a choked sob broke against his ear. "Daddy, I'm scared." That cry pierced his heart like a knife. In that single instant, all the years Richard had convinced himself that remarrying would bring warmth to his daughter crumbled. He held her tightly, his hand stroking her back, his eyes never leaving Rebecca. Rebecca's gaze darted around, as if hoping someone would defend her. But all she found was suspicion from across the street. Mrs. Elena Peterson, the gray-haired neighbor, stood silently by her gate, her face etched with discomfort. Rebecca turned back to Richard, her voice rising slightly. "Richard, don't you see? I just wanted her to understand manners. I never wanted to hurt her. You came back so suddenly, you haven't seen the whole picture." Richard held Sophia tighter. The green dinosaur was wedged between father and daughter. He didn't shout, but every word carried a chilling weight. "I've seen enough." Sophia looked up, tears still rolling down her cheeks, and buried her face in her father's shoulder. Rebecca reached out, as if to touch Richard's arm. "Richard, I know you love her, but you have to give me a chance. I am your wife. I have a right to discipline her." Richard slapped her hand away, his eyes burning with fury. "Discipline? With shears? Discipline by humiliating her in front of the neighbors? Rebecca, stop making excuses." The air grew heavy. Mrs. Peterson exhaled softly, her gaze falling on Sophia. Her eyes filled with pity. Richard bent and kissed his daughter's uneven hair. He straightened, fixing his eyes on Rebecca, his voice low but sharper than any shout. "You will be out of this house by tomorrow." The words fell like a hammer. Rebecca froze. Her face went pale, her lips trembling. Rebecca stood frozen for seconds. Her eyes widened, then suddenly filled with tears. Stumbling forward, she grabbed Richard's arm, her voice trembling. "Richard, I love you. I love Sophia. I just wanted to teach her. I was wrong. Please forgive me." Richard stood still, his face cold stone. He pulled her hand off him without hesitation. His eyes never left Sophia, whose hacked hair brushed his shoulder. The girl clung to him, holding the green dinosaur, her breathing ragged. Just then, Elena Peterson, the woman from across the street, walked through the gate. She had seen worrying things at this house many times. Elena looked directly at Richard. Her voice was low but clear. "I've seen it many times, Mr. Lawson. The girl left outside in the yard for hours. I didn't want to interfere, but today, I can't stay quiet." Rebecca spun around, her face twisting. "You have no right. This is our family. Stay out of it!" Elena didn't back down, her eyes still fixed on Richard. Her look held compassion for Sophia, and an unspoken message that Richard could no longer turn a blind eye. Richard remained silent, but a flicker of doubt crossed his eyes. Sophia's tearful words, her terrified look, combined with Elena's testimony, began to piece together a picture he had avoided. Seeing this, Rebecca shifted tactics. Tears streamed down her face. "Richard, I've tried so hard. I was the one taking care of her alone every time you were away for work. I get tired too. I just wanted her to be obedient." Richard's frown deepened. His hand tightened on Sophia's shoulder. The little girl looked up at him, her lips trembling, wanting to say something, but dropping her head again, burying her face against his chest. That small motion sent a desperate signal for help, one Richard could no longer ignore. "Please," Rebecca continued, "don't kick me out. We are husband and wife. I love this family. I was wrong. I promise I'll change." Richard didn't answer. He just held his daughter tighter, his eyes lost in the distance. He suddenly realized all those times Sophia would lower her head, all those nights she lay facing the wall, clutching her brown teddy bear. It wasn't because she was shy, as Rebecca had explained. It was fear. Elena spoke again, her voice low but clear. "You need to listen to her, Richard. You're the only one she can trust. Shut up," Rebecca shrieked. "You know nothing." Richard turned to Rebecca, his eyes like steel. "That's enough, Rebecca. You have nothing left to explain." Rebecca froze, then broke into loud sobs, crying as if she were the victim. Richard carried Sophia back into the house. In the living room, he sat her down, gently dried her tears, and asked, his voice softer than ever, "Sophia, is there anything you want to tell me?" Sophia bit her lip, looking down at her small hands. She hesitated. Then she whispered, so low Richard had to lean in to hear. "There is, but I'm scared. I'm scared she will hear me." Richard froze, a sharp pain in his chest. He put his hand on her shoulder. "I'm listening. Don't worry. No one will ever hurt you again." Outside, Rebecca stood on the threshold, the shears still in her hand, her eyes burning with rage. The tearful mask was gone, replaced by something much darker. That night, Richard sat at his desk. In his mind, the same images replayed, his daughter sobbing, Rebecca's shrieks, and Elena Peterson's judging eyes. He saw all the missed signs, the scratches, the moment Sophia flinched. It all built a wall of guilt. He opened a drawer, pulled out a blank sheet of paper, and his pen moved with firm, decisive strokes. Divorce petition. The next morning, Richard woke early. Sophia was still asleep, the brown bear in the corner, the new green dinosaur pressed tightly to her chest like a shield. He went to the living room. Rebecca was already at the dining table, dressed perfectly as if nothing had happened. Richard placed the paper on the table and slid it toward her. His voice was low and cold. "Sign it. We're done." Rebecca froze, then snatched the paper. Her face drained of color. Then, she violently threw the paper to the floor, her voice rising. "You will regret this. I gave up everything for you. You think you can just throw me away?" Her anger twisted her made-up face into a grotesque mask. Sophia, startled by the screaming, ran out of the bedroom, trembling, clutching the green dinosaur. Her eyes were wide with panic. She glanced back at her brown bear, wanting to run back, but her feet stayed glued to the floor. Richard stepped between his daughter and Rebecca, his voice sharp. "It's over, Rebecca. You're exposed," Rebecca sneered. "You think you're so smart, Richard? You think you can just toss me aside? I won't leave here empty-handed. Don't you forget it." Richard didn't respond. He calmly picked up the divorce papers. Sophia hid behind him, her small hand grabbing the hem of his suit jacket. Richard walked to the door, pulling his phone from his pocket. The screen lit up. A security alert was displayed clearly. "Unauthorized access detected on personal system." He frowned. His finger swiped, opening the access log. A series of unusual traces appeared. Their timestamps matched the exact days he had been away on business trips. His heart sank. In an instant, every suspicion connected. On the phone's screen, a name appeared. Victor Sterling. Victor Sterling, 42. The CEO of a rival tech firm. A man who had competed with Richard more than once. Just seeing that name was enough. Richard understood. This wasn't just a broken relationship. This was betrayal. This was a plan. From the dining room, Rebecca was still standing, a half smirk on her face, as if she knew exactly what he had just discovered. Richard gripped the phone, the name Victor Sterling glowing on the screen like a dagger. He immediately sat at his desk and logged into his private security system. Dozens of important files had been copied. The traces were undeniable. Someone had downloaded documents and sent them from a device inside his own house. Richard's fingers trembled as he scrolled through the chain of emails. The recipient's address was Victor Sterling. The subject line was direct. The content was brief but left him ice cold. Design data taken. Awaiting confirmation of payment. He closed his eyes. The image of Rebecca flooded back, pretending to bring him coffee, asking about the child safety project, laughing as she said she wanted to understand his work. He once thought it was a wife's care. Now he saw it was all a cover for treason. A faint sound made him turn. Sophia was in the doorway, green dinosaur clutched in her arms. "Sophia," Richard called gently. "Come here." The girl walked forward. He stroked her uneven hair. "You had something you wanted to tell me." Sophia hesitated. Then she whispered, "Mommy Rebecca. She left me outside in the yard. Lots of times, even when it was cold," she said. "She said I wasn't allowed to take my brown bear with me. She said I didn't deserve to hold him. I was so scared." Richard's throat tightened. He pulled her into his arms. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice thick with regret. "I'm so sorry I let you go through that alone. From now on, no one will ever make you feel scared again." Sophia buried her face in his chest. The phone on the desk rang. Richard answered. "Mr. Lawson, this is Clara Hayes, Sophia's teacher. I think you need to know something. Lately, Sophia has been falling asleep in class. I also noticed small bruises on her arm. When I asked, she just smiled and went quiet. I couldn't ignore it." Richard closed his eyes, gripping the phone. "Thank you, Ms. Hayes. Thank you for telling me." The call ended. Richard sat in silence. Sophia looked at him, her eyes brimming with tears but shining with expectation. He nodded. "I believe you, Sophia. I will listen to everything." He turned back to the screen. The evidence was clear. Rebecca hadn't just betrayed his trust. She had sold the work he had built his entire life. Richard sat up straight. He printed every email, every log, organizing them into a folder. The next morning, he drove to the Scarsdale Police Department. A woman emerged from the investigation office, her hair pulled back, her eyes sharp. Her nameplate was clear, Detective Maria Sanchez. She extended a hand. "Mr. Lawson, I've reviewed your file. Show me the evidence." Richard laid the folder on the table. "These are stolen data from my company's system. They were sent to Victor Sterling. The sender was Rebecca, my ex-wife." Detective Sanchez turned each page, her tone severe. "Mr. Lawson, this is no longer just a family matter. This is cybercrime. If this evidence is verified, she and her partner will face federal court." Richard nodded. This was a real battle. When he returned home, Elena Peterson was waiting at his gate, her face tormented. "I have to tell you, Richard, I saw it." The girl left outside for hours in the cold. "I wanted to call you, but I was afraid of causing trouble. I am so sorry I didn't speak up sooner." "It wasn't your fault, Elena," Richard said, his voice heavy. "The only one to blame is me. I was blind." The door creaked open, and Sophia peeked out, still clutching her dinosaur. Elena knelt, giving her a kind smile. "Don't be afraid anymore. I'll be by your side." A few days later, at the school, Richard met with Ms. Clara Hayes. "Mr. Lawson," she said, "I'm so glad you're taking action. I've been worried about Sophia. The bruises, the fear. She's a good student, but she's terrified." Richard knelt, took his daughter's hand, and whispered, "I have ignored this for too long. I will not let anyone hurt you again, Sophia." Richard began gathering more testimonies and met with a renowned lawyer, Michael Torres. Torres sat in thoughtful silence as Richard explained. "Mr. Lawson," he said, "we have more than sufficient grounds. The issue isn't just custody, it's serious criminal behavior. I will support you." That night, an anonymous envelope lay at their door. Inside was a series of photographs of Rebecca sitting with Victor Sterling in a dark cafe, their heads together, their faces serious. His heart pounded. Sophia stood beside him, watching him curiously, but Richard quickly closed the packet. Under the dim porch light, he knew this battle could no longer be avoided. The call from the courthouse came. "Mr. Richard Lawson, your lawsuit has been received. The first hearing will be scheduled soon. Please be prepared." Richard gripped the phone, his eyes fixed on the pale afternoon light. He knew the real battle was just beginning. He turned, seeing Sophia still clutching her bear and her dinosaur, her eyes watching him with worry. In his gaze, an unshakable resolution burned. The courtroom was solemn. Richard held Sophia's hand tightly as they walked through the security gate. She clutched her green dinosaur. The brown teddy bear was safely tucked inside her bag. Richard scanned the room. He saw Elena Peterson in the back row, her hands clasped. Ms. Clara Hayes was nearby and gave him a small nod. Detective Maria Sanchez met his eyes with a firm, steady gaze. On the opposite side, Rebecca adjusted her hair, her makeup perfect, her eyes cold as glass. The clerk called the case. The judge entered, robed in black, her silver hair neatly arranged. "I am Judge Patricia Coleman. Let us begin." The lawyer, Michael Torres, stepped forward, laying out a folder of documents, photographs, and printed emails. Rebecca interrupted suddenly. "He's lying, Your Honor. He's framing me!" Judge Coleman looked up, her tone firm. "You will have your chance to speak. Do not interrupt. Sit down." Detective Sanchez was called to testify first. She laid out the timeline of the system access, the chain of emails to Victor Sterling, and the device seizure reports. The data was copied on days Mr. Lawson was out of town. The IP address matches. The photographs confirm Ms. Rebecca met with Victor Sterling on multiple occasions. "We have referred the cybercrime charges to the district attorney's office." The judge nodded, taking notes. Elena Peterson took the stand, her voice trembling. "I saw little Sophia, forced to stay outside in the cold as punishment. There were days she cried until she had no voice left. I am sorry I didn't speak sooner." Ms. Hayes followed. "Sophia has fallen asleep in class multiple times. I noted small bruises on her arm. When I asked, she just looked at the floor. She is a good student, but she is frightened." The judge listened, then motioned to Richard. He stood and led Sophia forward. The girl's hand was ice cold. The judge's tone softened. "If you wish, child, you may speak." Sophia looked at Richard, and he nodded. Her voice was small but steady. I just wanted a mom, but she doesn't like me. She said I didn't deserve to hold the brown bear. I'm scared. I'm so scared." The quiet words silenced the entire courtroom. Rebecca jumped to her feet, breaking into tears, her voice shrill. "She's making it up. She's always causing trouble. I disciplined her for her own good." "Order!" 2 officers stepped forward. Judge Coleman fixed her eyes on Rebecca. "Ms. Rebecca, if you interrupt again, I will have you removed." Mr. Torres presented the final evidence: financial transfers between Rebecca and an account linked to Victor's company. The evidence shows not only child abuse but complicity in the theft of intellectual property. The criminal charges related to the tech theft have been handed to the DA. Rebecca looked at the stack of documents. She turned to Richard, her voice a low, venomous hiss. "You will pay for this, Richard." Richard didn't respond. He just pulled Sophia closer. Judge Coleman closed the file and read her decision. The court rules as follows. The divorce between Richard Lawson and Rebecca is granted. Full custody and guardianship of Sophia Lawson are awarded to Richard Lawson. A permanent order of protection is issued, prohibiting Rebecca from contacting or approaching Sophia. Regarding the child abuse, the court recognizes the testimony and refers the case to the proper authorities for further action. Regarding the filtered data, the DA's office has already charged Victor Sterling. Rebecca is being processed for her role as an accomplice. Rebecca forfeits all rights to marital property under the clause of gross breach of obligations. This ruling is effective immediately. A wave of whispers spread. Rebecca lunged forward but was blocked by the officers. She broke into sobs, then gritted her teeth, her eyes shining with spite. Elena wiped away tears. Ms. Hayes exhaled in relief. Detective Sanchez closed her notebook. Richard knelt, touching his forehead to his daughter's. "It's over, baby." Sophia wrapped her arms around her father's neck. Her ragged breathing slowly calmed. She put the green dinosaur in Richard's hand. Then she pulled the brown bear from her bag, placing the two side by side on the bench, as if she were fixing her small world back into place. They walked out of the courtroom. Elena took Sophia's hand. "I'm sorry I was late." Sophia shook her head, gave a small smile, and then hugged Ms. Hayes. On the courthouse steps, the wind brushed Sophia's uneven hair. She looked up, her lips moving, gathering every ounce of courage she had left to ask the fear that had tormented her most. "Daddy, if she comes back one day, what will I do?" Richard squeezed her hand, his eyes filled with a determination and a promise he knew he would have to keep for the rest of his life. Richard knelt to her level, his hand on her small shoulder. He spoke slowly, as if carving his words into stone. "Daddy will be standing in front of you. Even if the entire world turns its back, I will still be here." The drive home was quiet. The next morning, Richard woke early. He awkwardly handled the frying pan. The smell of butter and eggs bubbled and hissed. He made coffee, poured milk, and set 2 plates on the table. Sophia padded into the kitchen, her hair now trimmed a little straighter by his own careful hands the night before. She stared at the eggs. "Daddy, you made this?" "I'm learning," Richard said with a shy smile. Sophia took a small bite, then nodded. "It's good. Can I give half to the brown bear?" "All right, but the bear can only watch." Sophia covered her mouth, letting out the first full laugh in days. They stopped at a crosswalk, where Ms. Hayes was waiting. She smiled at Sophia. "You look more rested today." "Because Daddy made breakfast," Sophia said, her eyes bright. That night, father and daughter sat at the cleared dining table. Sophia placed the brown bear and the green dinosaur on the surface like guards. Richard opened a storybook he had once left unfinished. He read slowly. When the book finally closed, she looked up, her voice very small, but very clear. "Do you miss Mommy?" The question hit the place Richard had been avoiding. He met her gaze and chose honesty. "Yes, but your mother would be happy that we still have each other." "Because you are growing up how you want to," not in fear. Sophia was silent for a moment, then nodded. She pulled out a box of new pencils and a small sharpener and sat quietly, sharpening each tip. Richard watched, his heart softening at such an ordinary sound. Sophia put the sharpener down, looked at the 2 stuffed animals, and then turned to her father. "Daddy, I have something." She reached into the desk drawer and pulled out a small pair of school scissors. The blades glinted. Her hand trembled slightly, but her eyes did not. "I'm not afraid anymore. I trust you." Richard froze. The entire scene on the patio, it all flashed back. But this time, it ended with his daughter sliding the scissors across the table toward him. He put his hand on the table, not rushing to take them. "Are you sure?" Sophia nodded. "I want you to keep them. That way, if anyone ever uses scissors the wrong way, you will tell them to stop." Richard swallowed, his throat burning. He reached out, his palm open. The scissors rested there, strangely light, but inside his chest, they weighed as much as an oath. Later, Sophia spread out her drawing paper. She drew a window frame. On the sill sat the brown bear, next to the green dinosaur. Underneath them was one large hand, holding one small hand. Before bed, Sophia placed the 2 animals side by side on the shelf, turning their heads toward the bed. She slipped under the blanket and reached up, hugging her father's neck tightly. "Daddy, tell me one more story." "Tomorrow I'll tell you one." 2. "Okay." He tucked the blanket in, turned off the lamp, and left a thin line of light shining from the hallway. When the door was almost closed, Richard finally opened his hand and looked at the scissors again. His heart pounded and his eyes grew wet, for no other reason than the fact that his daughter had trusted him. One more step. He placed the scissors in the drawer by his bed, right next to a small hair clip Sophia loved, as if placing a promise where it would be easiest to see. He stood by her bed, listening to her steady breathing. Then he looked up at the shelf where the brown bear and the green dinosaur sat, watching in the dim golden light. Sophia stirred in her sleep, her hand reaching out. Richard sat on the bed, and she immediately curled against him, her whole body relaxing. Richard held Sophia tightly. "No one," he whispered, "can ever make you cry again. I swear it." The next morning he woke early again. The eggs were perfect. He and Sophia sat at the table. The brown bear sat closer to her. The green dinosaur tilted its head, as if watching the door. "You have an appointment this morning, Daddy?" "Yes. Ms. Hayes recommended a child therapist. I want you to try meeting her. If you don't like her, we'll stop." Sophia was quiet, then nodded. "I'll go, if you wait outside the door." The office was warm. Dr. Ana Reyes had a kind voice. She spoke to Sophia alone for 15 minutes while Richard waited. When she came out, Sophia didn't say much, just walked straight over and wrapped her arms around her father's waist. Dr. Reyes handed Richard a small piece of paper. "Tonight's homework," she said. "Write one sentence that makes her feel safe and place it by her 2 stuffed friends." That evening, Richard handed the pen to his daughter. Sophia thought for a long time, then carefully wrote, "I have Mommy and Daddy. Mommy left me the brown bear. Daddy gave me the green one. I will keep them both." She placed the card on the shelf, right behind the bear and the dinosaur. "From now on," Richard said softly, "we will write a new story together." Dinner was simple, but they talked more than usual. Before bed, Richard asked, "Where do you want your two friends to sit tonight?" "On the desk, facing the door. Why?" "So if anyone does anything bad with the scissors, they will see it first." Richard paused, then nodded. He understood. It was a ritual of self-protection. He placed the two animals on the desk. The brown bear leaned slightly on the green dinosaur, as if resting on its shoulder. "Daddy," Sophia called, her voice growing sleepy. "I think Mommy would like that I kept the brown bear. She didn't like it when I cried." Richard pulled a chair to the bed. "I don't like it either, and I will make sure it never happens again." Outside the window, the evening light slipped into the room, painting a soft golden stripe on the wall, landing on two velvet ears in the corner of the white card. Sophia closed her eyes. Richard stayed still, watching his daughter's chest rise and fall. Like the last guard at a newly rebuilt gate, he felt his own chest lighten, not because everything was solved, but because his daughter had put another pair of scissors in his hands. The scissors of trust. He dimmed the lights. The room felt quiet, like a small chapel where every object had its own meaning. He looked at the two stuffed animals, one tied to the past, the other opening up the present. And in that silence, a question arose. Could it be that sometimes it is the child who teaches the adult how to begin again?